one, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
When it comes to Hasbro and Takara, the way they handle novelty figures is very different. Hasbro usually goes for nostalgia with their crossover figures. It's about what can reach the widest audience. Whereas Takara typically goes for what's recently popular. What current line are they working on that Transformers can slip into? The Hasbro ideology has given me a bunch of disappointments, whereas the Takara ideology has given me two of my favorite MP10 repaints of all time, so in the end I think we can see which one is better in my eyes. It's not the idea that makes these better though, it's more the execution, but I think we can gather that Takara does these much better. And it's through that we come across today's topic, the first entry in this marathon that covers the Q Transformers. Back in G1, or should I say back in Microchange, the mini-bots were designed to mimic penny racers. And penny racers in Japan were originally called Choro Q. Choro Q continues to this day, and Takara saw fit to capitalize on it at the time of this release. So today, I introduce you to the cutest Transformers line you'll ever see. Q Transformers. So right off the bat, you can see that these fellas are incredibly super deformed. Like, these guys are not proportionate at all, because, well, that's not what they're supposed to be. They are fully licensed vehicles, don't get me wrong. With each of these, Takara went to the car licensor, got all of that stuff, bada bing bada boom. By nature of them being part of the Choro Q line, also known as the Penny Racers line back in the 80s. As far as I can gather, Takara never really stopped with that line, whereas the West did. And of course, this is just a kind of subline that came of that. Hey, what if we did penny racers but Transformers? Which is funny when you think about it, because that is exactly what the mini-bots were back in the day. Transformable versions of penny racers, or Choro Q, in Microchange. It's kind of funny that these are essentially what mini-bots would have been if they had been released in the modern day. Now, of course, Megatron transforms into a Lamborghini Aventador, and that car mode may seem familiar to a few people. In fact, when I took these out of storage for the first time in ages, I kind of thought, where have I seen this before? First, I thought maybe it was a reference to the alternative version, but no, that's a Nissan, so that's completely different. Turns out it's for one simple fact. It's the same vehicle mode as Age of Extinction Lockdown. And that makes sense because Megatron here is actually a redeco and a slight retool of Q Transformers Lockdown. They started off with Prime, Bumblebee, and Lockdown as their kind of mainstays, also as the protagonists of the anime shorts. I remember seeing subtitled episodes of the first season back in the day, but they've since been lost to time, which is a great travesty. Now, this Megatron goes for a heavily G1 inspired deco, so you've got a metallic finish over almost the whole thing. It's not plastic, it's actually a metallic fleck. And it looks really good, and there's a lot of detail on show here, a lot of detail. A lot of line work to make sure the car mode is properly mimicked here. Even the spoiler here, although everything is exaggerated for the size. Kind of find it funny how they've got that kind of thing to hide the hinges at the back there. Where I think this really shines, though, is the paint, because it's not just the silver. You've got all the windows painted, red tires on these blasted things to mimic the red zones on the G1 toy. My word, that's amazing. Blue headlights, they allow the color to shine through on the grille there, the gunmetal plastic underneath the silver shining through, and as well as a red bumper there. Is it a bumper? I think it's a bumper. Even at the back, you've got red paint all over the thing. It's truly amazing. Now, of course, this isn't my favorite version. Prior to me purchasing the 3-pack, I ended up grabbing myself the regular release of the Black Megatron, even though this one is more dark gray, but neither here nor there. I feel the details on this are much, much better. You get a bit more paint overall because they don't have to coat the whole thing in silver, and the blue really sticks out as well. It's a magnificent thing, but we're not reviewing that. We're reviewing Megatron over this Megatron over here. Now, I'm not going to go nuts over the size comparisons because these are all basically the same size. The cars are pretty much identical. I mean, sure, you've got some vans, some jets, and some trucks later on, and you've even got some other trucks that turn into some mascots, but for the sake of reviewing these quickly and easily, I'm just going to do the size comparison once because the cars are basically the same dimensions. Megatron is roughly 4.5 centimeters long, 2.5 centimeters wide, and 2.5 centimeters tall. I suppose next up we bring in Shockwave, who transforms into a Toyota Crown Athlete. That's apparently what the car's called. And I really like the colors on the show. It's nice to see Shockwave in black. Doesn't really look very Shockwavey in terms of colors, but I can see him taking this color scheme to disguise himself. And I suppose it's painted all right. I mean, you've got a lot of paint on the front there, probably thanks to the licensing. The licensing probably prohibited them to skimp on the paint there. A lot of nice silver paint picking out all the details and a nice badge there. Kind of reminds me when they put the Kamara logo on the old Revenge of the Fallen Legends figures. It's actually a different paint on the headlights and the windshields, which is a pretty nice touch. And fully painted hubcaps, something you don't see, and a fully painted back window. You can tell they went all out on these, even adding in back headlights. The detail here is much more subtle because it's not that crazy of a car. It's not like the Lamborghini where it's covered in line work here and there. It's just a simple workhorse car that does its job. The only thing that I could really criticize is the choice of car. It really doesn't feel like Shockwave at all. And given that this is fitting into the G1 aesthetic, character feel is somewhat important. But at the same time, I do get it, considering they have car companies to kind of go with on that. I imagine Toyota said, yeah, we'll give you the license as long as you give us one of the main Decepticons to work with, and they probably went along with that. I'm only guessing, it's just a hypothesis, but it is what it is. We have what we have. Now, fun fact, I didn't get the 3-pack until last year, and I actually bought Shockwave separately in his own individual release. So let's compare the differences between the two, and there's no differences whatsoever. Yes, the 3-pack is just that, a 3-pack, an easy way to get 3 of them at once. If you only like one of these 3 figures, or you only like 2 of them, or you just want to get different ones entirely, these are all released individually. As far as I can gather, there aren't that many exclusives in terms of packs. I think maybe the anime variants are exclusive to the 3-packs, but for these kinds of packs, it's identical to the individual releases, so you don't need to worry about that. And finally, we have Soundwave, who I think is my favorite of the set. This one, according to TF Wiki, transforms into a Nissan GTR. No, not that Nissan, a different Nissan. Geez, Alternity Blue Megatron actually kind of has a Soundwave feel to it. No, it's not Soundwave, it's a Megatron. Now this thing, this thing is absolutely gorgeous. Right off the bat, you've got a metallic blue finish that goes all over the thing. It is gorgeous. On such a small figure, it's a little thing that really goes a long way. The windows are all painted in a nice shiny black. I do kind of wish they separated the windows at the front here, but they probably didn't have the budget to do that because they got a lot of paint on the front here. You got a big splotch of gunmetal with the headlights painted in yellow, and yellow of course being the highlight color for Soundwave, so it really works here. Fully painted grille section, fully painted bumper section over here as well, like wowzers. And you've got a wonderful rim section here painted in yellow, further pushing that Soundwave aesthetic. Jeez, this looks beautiful. And of course at the back you've got the lights here. Funny thing, it kind of looks like speakers at the back. Nice little touch. And I think because of the sheer amount of paint on show, this one really manages to push the cute factor, because these things are adorable. No doubt about it, these are novelty toys, and in these modes they do pretty well. But enough of that. Here's a size comparison with a standard Legion figure, a standard Core Class figure, a standard War for Cybertron Micromaster, and crumbs. Quick side note, the only real thing this set offers that isn't available in the individual packs is a cardboard insert for you to drive these in front of. Yeah, Studio Series, eat your heart out. You can kind of just place these on display in these kind of parking spaces like so, and it does look alright. It's a neat little display option, don't get me wrong, but I don't really have much of a use for this. I'm sure some people will really like this, but it's not for me. I know exactly what I'm gonna do with this after filming this section. Now, the transformations for these guys is uber simple, and it has to be. It's sort of a template that all car formers in the Q Transformers lineup have to use, so it has to be simple but effective, able to convey a generic body type that works across many characters. And I think it does this pretty well. First thing you want to do is come to the bottom and bring out the legs like so. They're on 2 ball joints. Come to the back and separate these sections. There are hinges and ball joints that come into here, and they lock into place like so. Come to the bottom again, and rotate out the arms like so, and then come to the back, and most of these actually exhibit some automorph. There's sort of a push system where as you move the backpack back, the head will pop out like so, and the backpack kind of sits here. I would have loved it to have folded into place a bit further, but at a figure this size it doesn't really matter. So in essence, these do what they're supposed to do. Be a nice, simple, legend-sized transformer that can be transformed in a couple of seconds. Bit harder to do on camera and show how quick it is, but you get the idea. It can be done over and over again for any body type. Some of them, of course, have slightly bigger feet, some of them, of course, have slightly bigger arms, but for the most part, it's all pretty much the same. Easy peasy. The only thing out of this set that I find a bit annoying is that Soundwave shoulders don't really lock in at the front like the other two do, but it's fine. It's fine. And in robot mode, me, these are adorable. They're almost like shrunken down Nendoroids of the figure, only with even less articulation somehow. It's a simple shared body type between the three. You're not going to get a super accurate G1 Megatron or Soundwave out of this, or Shockwave for that matter, but I'll get to him later. But they are incredibly cute at this tiny little size. And that's all they're supposed to be. They're novelty toys that turn into realistic cars that have been scrunched up into super deformed proportions. Starting off with Megatron, you've definitely got a lot more of the gunmetal shining through now that the silver's not coating the whole thing. Like a lot of Legends figures, they clearly prioritize the alternate mode over the robot mode. Doubly so here because of the car licensing, but you know, it still looks pretty good. You still get most of the silver on the chest and most of the details shine through. And the head's fully painted as well. Like they went all out on the paint there too. They could have just left that gunmetal and, you know, it's still G1 Megatron, but they wanted to do well on that. I'm not super fond of the head sculpt. I think it's a little bit silly, kind of pushing the line of cute and silly, but it's fine. Of course, it's gonna have a big backpack and big kibble on the back of the shoulders, but for the size, you kind of get it. It even stands pretty well with these tiny little feet here, and they are posable as well. Not many poses look any good, but there is posability here. You've got ball joints at the shoulders and an elbow bend built in from the transformation, and of course a head swivel, because of course you have to have a head swivel, and two ball joints here, I guess one at the top of the leg, one at the foot. It's nothing crazy, but it'll get the job done for the size. Of course, thanks to the proportions, these guys have pretty big car memories, but it's kind of to be expected. They've all turned into the Datsun body type, only without the wings, although I suppose that would make it the Jazz body type, except Jazz had wings in his G1 toy, but not in the car. You get the point. Now here's one wide motherfucker at 6 centimeters wide, and only really 4.5 centimeters tall, so he's actually wider than he is taller. As is the case with pretty much all of the car formers, in fact, pretty much all of Q Transformers in general. But I mean, that's to be expected. There's only so much you can kind of do at this size with these super deformed proportions. If being wide is necessary for the transformation, that's fine. But again, if I had to pick the best Megatron in the lineup, I'd probably go for the black version that was only sold individually. Just the colors on this thing blow this version out of the water. Not really going to sell this one off. I'm going to keep both of them, but if I had to pick a favorite, yeah, this in a heartbeat. But we're not reviewing that one. We're reviewing the 3-pack, so let's continue. Now with Shockwave, again, I just don't know if he's that great. Not in terms of his build quality or his design, it mostly works, but just, they're going for a G1 style, even in this super deformed system, and it doesn't really feel like Shockwave. It kind of feels like they stuck a Shockwave head and arms onto an existing figure. Sorry to say, but it's kind of slapdash. I mean, it's nice that we've got some purple coming through on the feet, on the arms, and the head, but none of it's got that same glossy finish like the rest of the black parts, again showing they prioritized the vehicle mode, which makes sense, but I have to criticize the entire toy, not just the robot mode. You don't really get a lot of that Shockwavey goodness in the chest here. Like with Megatron, it was all silver, so it worked. And with Soundwave, with the extra gunmetal and yellow here, it kind of looks like his cassette door that he had in the G1 cartoon. So it kind of fits the character well, but here it's just the front of a car with Shockwave on a head, and that's okay, but it doesn't really fit with the rest of the body. Doubly so when these arms are very, very stumpy and out of place compared to everything else. I feel they should have made the whole thing purple or made the whole thing black, just committed to one. It's not a bad figure by any means, it's just kind of underdone. The head sculpt is okay, I suppose. He's kind of got that unamused eye there. Bit of emotion on Shockwave. I know a lot of people don't like that, like a lot of people got really angry over the Angry Eye Shockwave back in Cyberverse, but yeah, it works fine. Aside from that, it's the same kind of thing. Big backpack, big shoulders, kind of wonky proportions given what it has to do, small size, yeah, it's fine. If you like the way it looks, it's not gonna do anything that's really heinous, but if you're going for something that has the feel of Shockwave, not necessarily the accuracy, but just the feel of Shockwave, this ain't it, Chief. Now Soundwave, on the other hand, this is sweet. This is adorable and well painted and well built, just an all-around fantastic Q figure. The head sculpt is absolutely divine, pushing it way wider and flatter to fit into the super deformed aesthetic. Kind of reminds me of a figure I took a look at last year, the Junkion Blacksmith Headmasters. Fits kind of into that aesthetic, only much cuter. Of course, it's painted fantastically with the red eyes and the silver and everything, and the chest is painted fantastically with all the gunmetal and yellow there. And again, putting that gunmetal there really makes this feel like Soundwave. It gives the feeling of the character. The arms blend in well because they're only one color, and he's got some massive feet. Sweet, he doesn't really need massive feet, but I guess they wanted to mimic the G1 toy a bit. Although, if I'm being honest, he doesn't really share a lot with the G1 toy, aside from the fact they slightly flow downwards. I guess it's a neat little throwback, but it kind of seems pointless to me. But hey, it's just not a problem, just an interesting thing. Either way, this guy is easily the best looking of the bunch, and one of the best Q Transformers I own. Easily one of my favorites. And fun fact, fact, if you want to have him blast speakers, you can transform the arms like that and he's blasting his sound waves, just like the name, haha. So I suppose we should finish off with some size comparisons here. Here he is next to a standard Legion figure that refuses to stand up. There we go, standard Legion figure. And of course, here he is next to a standard core class figure, a standard War for Cybertron Micromaster, and crumbs. So if you want all three of these, this is a great way to get them. But if you only want one and don't want the others, they're all released individually, so you can just go for that instead. I would strongly recommend Soundwave, kinda half recommend the silver version of Megatron, but strongly recommend the black version. But Shockwave, I could take or leave. Or just don't get any of these. You can just get one of the characters you like, get your favorite character in this kind of style, and that'll do you just fine. They did most of the G1 lineup as far as I can recall, so you've got options. You don't have to get one of these three. I'm not going to cover all of the Carbots because once I've covered these, it's kind of the same for the rest. But you can take your pick because Q Transformers on the whole is pretty good. Ultimately, I don't think the 3-pack is the most worth it. The only thing you really get out of it is a piece of cardboard that you can probably just print up on the internet. If you really, really love all of them, then yeah, it's probably a good idea to get this set because it's probably going to be cheaper on the aftermarket. But otherwise, these things aren't the most expensive. Just pick what you want and stick with that. And that applies to all the other Carbots in the Q Transformers lineup as well. They're all pretty much the same. You like one, it's going to be the same as the rest. So just stick with that. It'll be fine. I don't want to go all in on these. In fact, at this point, I think I've bought all the ones I want. Maybe I'll get the Evangelion ones at a later date, but for now, I've got Nemesis Prime, I've got Ratchet, I've got Thundercracker, and I've got these guys, and that'll really do me. The rest just kind of follow the same templates, so that's enough. Yes, they're not retools of each other, so technically they are new experiences, but they all transform the same, so it's much of a muchness. And that's what I would advise you do as well. If you're getting into Legends collecting, these are good for novelty pieces, but not much else. They are extremely well crafted, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, I just don't get much from them. Going back to the Legion class though, there is one figure that I do get surprisingly a lot from. I initially thought I wouldn't. I initially thought I would be deeply disappointed by it, but looks can be deceiving. Tomorrow we discuss why sometimes fandom hate isn't justified in the slightest, and we discuss why, once again, the Robot in Disguise Legion lineup is one of the best. So, see you then.